There's a story on BLM I want to take from a slightly different angle than we usually do. This is a radio host who is a radio host in New York. She had gone on the air one day, probably many days, and said, F the police, F the police. Typical sort of thing you would hear from BLM or from the radical left. And then hours later, she kills a police officer in her car. Take a listen.
I will see you guys next Monday at 6:30 p.m. back here on Face of Reality Radio, on the Instagram and on the Facebook. And until then, the police.
Until then, that's like her sign off, right? And then hours later, this 32-year-old woman, Jessica Beauvais, hit a police officer, a highway officer, in her Volkswagen. He was redirecting traffic, and she killed him. Why did she kill him? Did she target him because he was a cop? No, I don't think there's evidence of that. But she was hammered. She was drunk and high. In the studio, she drank a lot. She admitted to this, to drinking a bunch, to smoking a bunch of pot. And then, totally impaired, she kills this guy. She killed Anastasios Tsakos, 43, father of a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. He was redirecting traffic after a separate fatal car accident, and she hit and killed him. And you know what her reaction was? This direct quote. Why did my first accident have to be a cop? Not that I wanted it to be someone else, but F. I've been driving since I was 16 and haven't hit as much as a pothole. Fairly callous and selfish response. But put all that aside for a sec. She was probably still drunk and high at the time. I don't see any evidence that this woman was aiming at a cop. I mean, she's saying, gosh, why did I do this? It's going to ruin her life. The reason I bring it up is not to say this is a terrible woman. I mean, she did terrible things. If you get super drunk and high and then get behind the wheel, you are endangering people. But I mention it to bring up what she said on the show. F the police. That's probably the last thing that people are going to remember. Probably the first thing and the last thing people are going to remember about this woman. And I wonder if she's got any conscience in her whatsoever, how that's going to go through her head. She's going to remember that she killed this guy, father of young kids, because of her irresponsibility. And the last thing that she said was F the police. Not good stuff, guys. Not good stuff. You do not want to have these sorts of regrets from a purely selfish standpoint even. You do not want to live with this kind of stuff on your conscience, whether it's acting irresponsibly and then hurting somebody, or whether it's even just saying a cruel, vicious thing, and then, God forbid, somebody dies, someone goes away, and that's the last thing that you're going to remember. You don't want to live like that, okay? I joke about it sometimes when I get fan mail from the radical left. Get a fair bit of it. And I got one yesterday on Instagram from some gal, and it was this sort of vile stream of insults and really mean things. And I responded, and I said, I don't respond to many messages, but I did see it. It popped up, and I said, imagine saying this to a perfect stranger. Imagine what it takes to go, a perfect stranger, and you go and you write these vile things. And she had a good response. She said, I don't need to imagine it. I said, that was a softball, but touche. Touche, that was a funny answer. But the reason that I respond, I just laugh these things off, is because I don't want the last thing that I have said to somebody to be something vile. Not even just for them, not even just because it's, that's the wrong thing to do. That's going to be on my conscience. That will sully me, that will degrade me, so I don't want to do it. We do these things sometimes, you lose your temper, whatever, it gets the best of you. But one wants to avoid it, not just for the moral order, but because it's in your own interest too. You need to fight back against these sorts of radicals. You can fight back without degrading yourself. Hey, if we're still on YouTube, I am absolutely shocked because we really broke the narrative today, because the studies broke the narrative. If you want those sorts of facts that you're not going to hear from the left-wing sources, subscribe, ring that bell, like it, and head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, MySpace, LiveJournals, Hang, we're on all the platforms. Subscribe to The Michael Knowles Show. Please leave a 5-star review. We really appreciate that. Helps us break through the walls of censorship and suppression and get right to you. We'll see you next time.